Welcome to Warblog. Today I'm going to look at Grammos range. That's where this will go, and it's really just based on the sort of narrative description of sort of events that happened. I can't quite recall, but presumably around the date referred to here. Yeah, so basically around the 3rd of May 49. Pretty much after the previous Greek scenario did, the 4,000 guerrillas basically re-entered the Grammos range, May 49. And it basically states that there was no opposition because the Greek National Army had withdrawn the previous winter, so presumably they didn't go in there in the winter, so May being pretty much sort of spring, I guess, was the time to do it, and so they go in there, and the Greek National Army then try to push them out, but they're not particularly successful. So that's pretty much the storyline for this scenario. Just jump into play mode. Now, it's going to be an odd one, and it's one of the ones that tests the limits of the capability of the game. In particular, not for any sort of major reason, but most units will only be able to move one hex because it's hills, mountains, wooded hills. I've given the artillery 3.1 movement, and that's so that they can actually get into the mountains, I think. So they can. One limiting factors, I think, is certain units can move into a hill or into a mountain and still have a little bit of movement, whilst others can't, meaning that you can move into this hex and attack, because you've got 0.1 movement left, for example, but I'm not sure how that applies here. Let's not worry about that too much. But if things are moving one hex at a time, then, and this is based on experience actually, the strategy is sort of, well, where are the outlying objectives? Well, we've got Placky, but obviously we've got this objective here, and this objective here, which look like quite outlying ones. Now this is obviously going to be easy to get to. So the experience from one of the other games I played was, instead of sort of going for this one, taking it, moving to this one, taking it, the limiting factor is how quickly can you get there. And I started to look at it and I was thinking 1, 2, 3, 4. So crossing the river is of no difference because you can only move one hex. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. For example, from there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 moves. But from here it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves. So the thing to do is to move this unit there in the first instance, and then this one 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So by 7 turns you should be able to capture everything, and then obviously everything else will filter through and take the other one. So obviously this place here, you could use one of these units for that. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that'd be 6 to there. 7, 6, 6. And so you've then got to consider how far can they move, because the reinforcements I think will come on from here. And even if they could move 2 along the road, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So by the time we were taking this objective, the Greek National Army were taking or contesting Pulikati, and that's only the start. They come on heavily staggered. So basically we should be able to take the whole of the Grammos range, and by the time we reach the last objective, the Greek National Army should reach the first objective. And so, to be quite honest, we could very well have just sort of plonked them all on the board. So it's really not going to be that much of a problem. But the thing is, if you don't think strategically like that in the first instance, for example, if you sort of move this unit here and then wait your, 2 turns maybe to take it as an objective, and then maybe moved you might not get there, etc. You might sort of find that it's slightly different. So anyway, I'm not going to play the whole thing through, but let's just see. So he's got one movement, so he can move 2 through the hills. So presumably if we're on these paths, we can move a little faster. I could maybe have gone for that objective, but I want to push things forward as fast as possible. That's another point. You can only have 1 unit in a mountain hex. That's the opening move. Because the Greek National Army have no movement. When I say they have no movement, they have no units to move. So, I'm going to use this unit to head this way. Swinging across the Grammos ranges. And we still don't have any more units to move. So, now the question is, and it's something I'm not thought of until now, what will be the defensive? This is what this game might be more about actually, it's how you apply your defences for the oncoming Greek National Army onslaught. We've got artillery, which is really sort of mortars and howitzers. Where would we want to defend these objectives when really we're taking the Grammos ranges, but I've put in all of this other stuff as well. So for example, the artillery has full range. So if we've had a position there, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, that would protect this objective. Perhaps 1 here would protect 1, 2, 3, that would protect that objective. 1 here would protect this objective, 1, 2, 3, 4. So thinking ahead, which I hadn't thought of initially, we would want some artillery there, there, and there. For starters, protected in the mountains, of course. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the question is, would we want to place any artillery in a further forward position, such as there, or keep it all back, maybe behind this river line? to protect the Grammos range proper. Because once we've probably set ourselves up, we probably won't be able to move the artillery particularly quickly and still use it. Now if they're going to come on from here, presumably they're going to just come up this way, but they could come up this way. They could almost do that and come in from there. But if they did that, we'd probably be able to figure it out. But they could send a sort of an element of their forces that way, setting up a strong line there to push this way, while sending a more aggressive unit this way to attack along that front. So we don't know how they're going to do it. So if there were, I think maybe what we're talking about here, what we're thinking about is where to position the artillery. So we've got 7, so presumably we could really maybe do with having something, we could have something in Albania, for example, there, and it would almost be uncontestable. So we could keep our artillery in Albania, and on the premise that the Greek National Army can't go into Albania, and that would keep it safe almost, and then have a sort of a more 1, 2, 3, 4, a much smaller area, maybe giving this objective up, maybe giving this one up. And that would be a lot harder for the Greek National Army to assail. So that's 4. But if we leave them back here, they won't be able to engage in any sort of initial fighting. So what I think I'm going to do is put one sort of maybe 4 there in a line, and maybe 1, 2, 3, like that as a secondary line. So just sort of spread them out. I'm not going to remember that setting, probably not going to get that far either, but what I'm saying is I think at this stage it's probably worth thinking about where the artillery should be going. So we've got 2 down here. So this artillery piece might want to start thinking about going this way. So these 2 are going to go over here, and these 3 can be more central. Let's give it another thing to move. Oops. Yes, so now we've got some units on turn 4. Okay. Okay. It's the Democratic Army's turn, isn't it? Coming on earlier than I thought. Okay, so what are they likely to do? Well, they're likely to come this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can't stop us getting to that objective. Okay, so turn on the road. And that's it. And there's more artillery load. So it's going to be a very slow game, I think. Not that that's a problem, I think, but I'm not going to get through it in video. That's interesting, isn't it? So you'll be able to go into the wooded hills. Right, okay. Right, so we wanted to sort of leave this artillery there, but we sort of wanted it down there, really. So let's see if we can move it there, there. So we could be in Albania there with our artillery supporting that. It might be worth pushing all that way over to Nestoria, but they can cross this river, it's not really a problem. Just move back over this way. So we'll push this artillery in this direction. Okay. So do we want to push him forward? We've taken the objective, I think we should. So what we've got now is the potential of a southern front forming, which is slightly advanced from the Grammos, with the core area of the Grammos range. I don't know exactly the extent of the range, etc., but okay. So I think I'm more tempted to just do the obvious. Let's spread these this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So in 2 turns there'll be an artillery range. If we move them next turn, there'll be an artillery range of these guys. Okay, we can get this objective. So we've covered all the objectives now. Some of them are going to need a little more attention, but okay. Okay. So artillery range. Okay. Units. I think the main push is going to come this way, so we're going to have to really sort of consider pushing artillery pieces in these directions. So what we've really got here is a sort of line that's going to form along there. They're bringing a lot more of these units south. Do I want to push them forward? I think I do. That's it. They're in the artillery range now. So we're going to see some combat. Now what I'm going to do with this unit is push them this way. Okay, so the Greek National Army start to use their artillery. So they might want to start pushing this unit back and then reinforcing it. Or bring their artillery closer at least. Okay, well, I think I should push as much artillery down here as possible. I think I want to keep this line in some reserves. I think the line should really be sort of maintained as far this way as possible. So I'm going to sort of leave them there. I'm going to cover one. So we should be able to target this unit now. 0.2, 1.7. So it's going to be this sort of artillery duel and positioning of artillery. So we've now had essentially artillery duels involving these units. So it's not what's missing, but this road network is the only thing that gives a sort of any strategic sort of variation on what's possible. Because if you can move along this road quickly, but it's so far away, it's not as though you can move from here all the way around here quickly. You should probably be able to respond. If there was a road that sort of went across there, that would be quite powerful. Or a road that went through here, gaining access to that road would be able to, or went like that, you could shift the units from here to there quite quickly. But I think this road network is relatively significant. It depends how fast we can move through the hills here, probably 2. I'll probably get to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2 turns, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they might be able to start pushing up that way. They could probably do that just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They could probably push right into the heart this way. So, you know, it's not really that, doesn't really seem that fast. But, we'll see. I'm just pushing these this way so that I have something on this side of the board to threaten this front, no matter how small it is. So what I'm considering here is trying to do this. I really want to get into contact, but I don't think we can do anything. What's their depressions? The depression of 1.6. Let's keep the pressure up on them. .8. Okay. Let's do some attrition fire. Now, attrition fire is really boring, but it could be the only thing that ever really gets us. There's 0.4, so that wasn't completely wasted. So now they've got to consider the sort of the amount of pressure that's going to build up on this southern end. This is, I mean, is this an effect? Is this going to cause them a problem? I don't know. What we'd like to do, I think, 1, 2, 3. So we just sit there and recover. We'll leave him there. Leave this artillery here. And we'll leave this as central reserve. Okay, so we're now going to fire artillery here. 1.2. So I think counter battery fire is going to be the most important thing. Okay, I'm not going to do much more, but what I'm going to do with this turn, I think I'm going to start moving the strategy more towards counter battery fire, and continue shuffling these guys around. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, again. So I'm going this way, but now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go for his artillery. This is like 1.6, 1.2, and his is at 1.7. So we've lost more artillery than his, but our artillery is, Greek National Artillery is better. So already we're developing this. This is what I like to sort of possibly dwell on quite regularly, is what's sort of happening, and develop a narrative on top of that. And I think that's what makes the game richer. In sort of, there's poising and saying, well, we've pulled across the border here, taking up this position, and then there's been some sort of artillery barrages, some small arms exchanges over here. It looks as though there's a sort of build-up of activity and engagement across this sort of area just to the west of Ator Militica. And you can sort of almost imagine the Plicati to Militica line. So you can almost imagine that being a sort of a defined front line across here, with news reports of the activity along this line, news from the front, from both sides of the equation, explaining what's happening. I think that's just sort of it's quite interesting. So we've got that front line there, and you sort of think, well, why have we got lots of troops along here? Well, that's sort of part of not some suspension of disbelief, but sort of part of the role play to it. Well, we're trying to hold the whole thing. We don't necessarily know that troops are coming from here, but you can start applying what you know about the situation. And initially, the Democratic Army were well informed about Greek National Army activity, movement through their sort of their partisan network, so to speak. But once that partisan network was actively targeted and destroyed, which is around about this time, they didn't know. And so what you could then say is, well, how much do we know about what the Greek National Army are doing? Now, previously we might have known that these units were moving here because we all got reports. But in this instance, we sort of don't. So we would be more inclined to say we'd need to keep this front line because we don't know that. Now, if this was in 47 or 46, we would have known that there was only 2 units, and then we could justifiably say we're going to move everything down here. And I think conversely, if you think, well, what is the strategy being applied down here by the Greek National Army? I mean, is that sort of realistic to just sort of hit at the first point, or maybe would they have sent everything around this way for no reason? I mean, there doesn't look like there's any sort of strategic advantage to attacking from, say, this way. It's not as though there's planes along here, or it seems as good a place to do it as any, and also you're hitting sooner rather than later. But it would be interesting to see a game where both players spent 100 turns manoeuvring units around. But that's sort of the sort of game you couldn't really play via a video. But as a simulation, it would be quite interesting to see something like that happen. How many turns could you sort of play cat and mouse, moving units around without engaging, etc., etc. positioning artillery pieces in certain places, etc. Anyway, brings me on to something else. So, oops. Okay, I'm not going to do any more because I want to finish. But what I'm going to try and do here is just push these forward and just bypass this line and just try to get this artillery and really go for the artillery as soon as possible because they're much weaker targets. And to see how that works, and then envelop this with our artillery. So you could almost say that the correct strategy for the Greek National Army would be to have actually created a front line that wasn't porous. But it's easy to say now, and to maybe keep the units further back, and as I intimated earlier, to keep them on the other side of the Albanian border, and also maybe to have a strategy of falling back faster. But this is the first time I've really looked at it, so I hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any ideas on how you might play the strategy, then you can sign up and play it for yourself. And I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.